So imagine that you're a dream character and you need to discover who you really are or what you really are. How would you go about doing it? Have a think. What kind of activities would work? Or maybe you could ask yourself, approach it from the negative. What kind of activities, what kind of investigation would not work, would not reveal your identity? What kind of investigation would reveal your identity? So, as I often say, we are blessed with Sri Ramana's teachings, the verbal teachings, the written teachings, the oral teachings of Sri Ramana. And we're blessed with his presence, which is ever present in our hearts, everywhere. And if we have a resonance, with him, if we feel love for him, and if we have faith in him and his teachings, which are the Vedanta teachings, the timeless teachings, he tells us. He tells us what kind of investigation will help and what kind of investigation will not help. And what does he say? He says, if you are investigating second and third persons, that is objects, that is Maya, this kind of investigation might yield worldly knowledge, knowledge of Maya, knowledge of the dream. Makes sense, doesn't it? But it will not yield you knowledge of the knower, the seer, the subject, of what you really are. And without knowing what you are, deeply, totally, truly, non-conceptually, there is no end to suffering. In fact, even though the self can never be obscured or covered in any way, it appears to be. It appears to be covered due to all these second and third persons, these objects, this Maya, these coverings. Some of you will know the Vedanta teaching of the 5 coverings, Panchakoshas, the teachings of the Panchakoshas. If you don't know the teaching, it doesn't matter. But we need to remove the coverings and we need to uncover, or we can say discover. We need to discover the self, what we are. We need to remove the veil, Maya. Here is a wonderful book that I love. It's called The Shining of My Lord. And you'll see there, it's written by Muruganar. Beautiful book. You don't need to buy it. You don't need to get it. It just has the same bloody teachings that all the books have. Yeah, it's the same teachings. But I really love this book. A lot of it's devotional it's all verse. And Muruganar is writing about his devotion to Ramana. And he also gives us the teaching. Most of you will know that Muruganar was a devotee of Sri Ramana for about 20 years. and he received personal lessons on the teachings from Ramana, and he was self-realized himself. And he always directed people towards Ramana. And there's several verses where the teaching is beautifully described. I'll just read one to you now. This is verse 502. And in this verse, Muruganar is going to very succinctly and clearly and concisely give us the whole teaching. He's going to use the word sadhana, which means spiritual practice. And he's also going to use the word tapas, which in this context also means spiritual practice. The sadhana is to withdraw the mind from the sense objects of the world. The sadhana is to withdraw the mind from the sense objects of the world, which arise through ignorance of taking the body to be I, and fix it in the feet of the Lord's grace, pure consciousness. For those who are fully convinced of the efficacy of this sadhana and who are able to practice it, there will be no need to abandon it to perform any other great tapas. Very clear. The teaching is to withdraw the mind from the sense objects of the world and fix it, and he uses this term here, to fix it in the feet of the Lord's grace. And then he just explains what that means. He says pure consciousness. There are three basic concepts in these teachings. There's the concept of the self, which is the reality. There's the concept of Maya, which is the false reality that you think is real, that is not real. And then there's the concept of where you can place your attention. There's a concept of your attention. So you've got the self, which is the reality, unchanging. You've got Maya, which is the fiction. And then you've got this sense that you can choose which one you place your attention onto. We've got two rooms. One is the room of the self, and room of truth. One is the room of Maya, the room of fiction. And we can choose which one we look into. So the sadhana is to withdraw the mind from the sense objects of the world. That means don't place your attention on Maya, the objects, and fix it in the feet of the Lord's grace, pure consciousness. Remember it was Thursday, wasn't it? On Thursday, we talked about all the different synonyms for the self. So when you hear these beautiful words like grace and the Lord's feet, and this is all meaning the self, pure consciousness. And remember what that word pure means? When we talk about pure consciousness, that word pure means it's consciousness without any objects, without any arising phenomena. Pure subjectivity. He also says here, the sadhana is to withdraw the mind from the sense objects of the world, which arise through the ignorance of taking the body to be I. So what he's saying is that Maya is created by this idea of I am the body. The idea I am the body creates the whole of Maya, which is why the I am the body idea is called ignorance. It's the seed, the source of Maya. And the whole point of the teaching is to remove the ignorance, and that destroys Maya and suffering. And he says, for those who are fully convinced of the efficacy just means effectiveness. For those who are fully convinced of the efficacy of this sadhana, which means for those of you who have faith in Ramana and Ramana's teachings. If you have faith in Ramana and his teachings, you will be convinced you have faith in his teachings. And who are able to practice it, There will be no need to abandon it, which means that's all you need to do. There will be no need to abandon it to perform any other great tapas, to perform any other spiritual practice. There's no need for any other spiritual practice. If you have faith in the teaching, that's one. And if you practice it, if you're able to practice it, you don't need anything else. The next verse is much shorter, verse 503. Until everything shines holy as Swarupa, Swarupa means the true nature of the self. Until everything shines holy as Swarupa, eschew all perceived phenomena as your enemies. Eschew means to remove or to get rid of. Eschew all perceived phenomena as your enemies. Until everything shines holy. This is how you discover your true nature. Not by investigating in the dream. Investigating the dream, you will learn about the dream. Yeah? You'll be placing the torchlight of attention into that room called Maya. And you'll be learning about Maya, which is fine. But you will suffer accordingly. If you take that searchlight and put it back onto yourself, you will learn to abide as yourself. And you'll learn about yourself, and you will become truth. Note I said become truth. That's what it will feel like. You are just becoming what you already are. It's like waking up for a dream. You're never the dream character. But now you are realizing you are not that dream character, and the entire dream was fiction. So remove Maya. Maya is your thinking, your thoughts, the objects that are perceived. Slowly, slowly, gently, gently remove Maya. Abide as the pure consciousness that you are. Like when you wake up from a dream, the dream consciousness fades away and the reality is revealed. Verse 508, those who abide as pure consciousness will experience the truth. Again, we've got that word pure, pure consciousness. It means untainted by objects. But if the mind is allowed to move about among the senses, through the pathways of the five senses, and then we've got some quite strong language here. Life, from a spiritual point of view, life will become shameful, losing its beauty. Why is it shameful? It is shameful. You should be ashamed to take yourself to be a limited entity, to take yourself to be a limited body-mind entity. This is shameful. Why is that shameful? How can that be shameful? I'm a person, aren't I? Why are you telling me to be ashamed of what I am? No, I'm telling you to be ashamed that you're taking yourself to be limited when you are unlimited. That is why it's shameful. You're degrading yourself. You're denigrating yourself. So when this term shameful is used, Muruganar is not trying to put you down. He's trying to lift you up by saying, look, why take yourself to be less than what you are? We can use the analogy of a beggar and a king. Why take yourself to be a penniless beggar when you are the king? It's just an analogy. This kind of thing. Hold your head up high. You're the self. Abide as the self. Know yourself. Okay, thank you, everyone. So having heard these teachings, having faith in these teachings, seeing the suffering in the world, seeing the recurring confusion that occurs, turn inwards, abide as the self. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any feedback, you're very welcome to talk with me.